Right. I'm trying this again, which means I'm disconnected from the event though. So let me see if you guys can find me. If you were able to log in, drop me a message in the chat and let me know. I think we're live again. All right, we're live again. I'll do some real time weirdness here. Let me. All right. Okay. All right. The thing about stopping the. Hey, Sam, is it better? Man, sorry about that. That was a bunch of nonsense. I hope we didn't lose everybody though now. I did drop a note on the event, and so hopefully people will find their way over here. Anybody else that gets over, let me know if you're here. Hey, you guys made it back. Good. All right. Awesome. That's only, 10 minutes down the drain. It's a 30-minute show, right? Well, what's 10 minutes? It's only a third of the show. Yeah. Sorry about that. I'm gonna, for those of us who live stream, I'm going to throw this out there for your edification. I religiously restart my computer before going live. I shut everything down. I restart. Oh, thank you, Sam. Thanks for doing that. So I always restart the stream. Well, this time, I restart the computer, and I also have that moment with the guest in the pre-live where we can say, okay, how does your video look? How does my video look? How's the audio? All that stuff. Well, I didn't do this time because I'm by myself. And I also didn't restart the computer because, it's my birthday and I'm just trying to get away with being cheap. Freaking and I paid the price for it, right? I didn't restart the computer, and look at that. It was garbage. Even when I check, here in the interface where I can see, like, I've got 4 green bars as opposed to the 3 yellow I had before. So hopefully we're all good now. Sorry about that. It was my fault for trying to shortcut it. And for those of you who live stream, restart your machine before you go. This episode is just to kind of recap the season a little bit. There is one thing that I kind of wanted to share, which is the origin story for the show. I think a lot of people haven't heard that. So this all started probably back last December. There are roots even back, last fall. A lot of you know that I love doing video work. I like to create videos. I like to edit videos. I just enjoy the format. Live shows is something that I first came into contact with through Trevor. That's Trevor Van Worden. For those of you who don't know, he's one of our friends. An hour meaning like me and Amber and Sam and Nadine whenever she gets back over here. I like the live show format. Like, it's really neat. It's just fun. It's nice to see people. It's nice to see people live. Like right now, if I get a frog in my throat, like, that's live and you just see that, right? So I enjoy the format. Last December, I had a conversation with Doug Lawson. Doug's a marketer. He's on LinkedIn. He's really a sharp dude. When you guys see me wear, my favorite hoodie, that's Doug's logo. There's a little DLM on that skull for Doug Lawson Marketing. He had that hoodie for sale through Mavens of Merch, which Zeneb Lachi runs. And I was thinking about buying the hoodie anyway. And then Doug did a post and he was like, anybody who buys one of my hoodies, I'll give you, an hour of my time for free. Like, all right, well, that's a great deal. I was going to get the hoodie anyway. So I got the hoodie and I talked to Doug. Now, I didn't know which direction I was going at this point, but it was a conversation that kind of just meandered. I was just asking him general questions about marketing. I didn't have anything specific because I didn't know where I was. Uh, but one of the things that he said to me had a huge impact. He said, listen, if you don't know what you want to do, one of the things you can do is run a podcast. Like, what are you talking about? He said, when you run a podcast, you are the host. You're the person that's in the questions chair. You ask all these questions. You have the subject matter experts come on and you get to ask them about what you want to find out about. And my, jaw hit my lap because I had always thought that podcast hosts were experts. If you're going to host a show, like, you have to know everything about the subject, but you don't. You just have to ask the questions. So my interest in the lives that was largely growing thanks to watching Trevor do what he was up to, my love of video, which is just something that I already have. And then this new idea of maybe doing a podcast, doing an interview style show to learn things combined. And so I had this idea to do the live. Now, yes, Nadine, Sam is star employee. Thanks for dropping the link, Sam, again. This is why you need a producer sometimes, right? Like somebody, an extra pair of hands. I can only do so much. And the 4-year-old, she's no help at all. So why coaching, right? So I have those two kind of things, the conversation with Doug, the love of video and live shows. Well, I had back around the turn of the year, a bunch of conversations with coaches about what they do, just coffee chats, stuff like that, trying to find out, and really liked it. The thing about it that was powerful was it reminded me of what I did back in my undergraduate degree when I was studying religion. The spiritual direction, spiritual formation, pastoral care type classes were always the ones I liked the most. And the reason I liked them so much is because I learned from there that you can be with people in ways that are helpful, are supportive, are encouraging, but that aren't prescriptive, that aren't you. So I grew up Southern Baptist, so I'm very familiar with preaching at people, like telling people what to do, but to just hold space for people, which is a theme that's come up over the course of the show. Like, that's something that I learned about in those classes that really struck me as powerful and that I believe in very much. So to hear coaches talk about how, like, that is a lot of what they do really piqued my interest. And the more I have learned about this and the more I have talked to people, the more it has felt like coming home to me. Coming home in the sense that, like, I have been making my way back to something that was important to me when I was 19, 20, 21, that was, which I'm 47 today. So that was a while ago. A quarter of a century has passed and I've done very little with that stuff. I've done carpentry. I've worked in the hospitality industry. I've done all kinds of things, but not enough with this work, which is work that I care a lot about. So it's been very good getting back to it. So that is kind of how we ended up here with the show. And so on that point, I did want to, like, take a second here to say, like, thanks to Doug. Like, I really appreciated that conversation with him. It laid a lot of the groundwork for this. Thanks to Trevor. His lives, especially when he was doing 344 Live and he had that little spot at the end where he would allow his guests to say something. It was just, the mic was all theirs. That's where I got the idea to do what I do at the end of this show. All season long, I have always carved out a minute or so at the end where I let the guest have the whole screen, say, it's all yours. You share something that you want to share with us. I really like that. And I'm glad that Trevor had that idea. I'm glad I saw him kind of model, really intentionally giving that space for the guests, because it's great stuff. Sam, coming back home is such a great phrase, right? Like, home is where the heart is, home. And you can carry home with you, right? Your heart always goes with you, but then you can have places and spaces and ideas and people that are like where you're supposed to be. And sometimes we get distracted from that and we get away from it. That's, another thing that coaching about. One of the things that I've learned over the course of the past year, really trying to think about coaching, read about coaching, have lots of conversations with coaches about coaching, is that coaching is about helping people really see clearly where they are right now, like right now in this moment, and then helping them get clarity on what's next, right? Like we all have hopes, dreams, ideas about where we want our life to go, but those things can be muddy, and we don't always play them out the right way. In the book Designing Your Life, one of the things that the authors talk about right off is examples of people who had very successful careers, professionally did very, very well, and then woke up one day and were like, ugh, I don't like this. Like, what am I doing? Um, and sometimes you need somebody to get with you in that ugh and be like, all right, well, what's going on? And then you have to figure out where you should be instead. So let me switch into some questions because I did do the post this morning where I asked for some questions. I got a handful of good ones, and that I've put down here so I can address them. And I'll go through them. If you guys have anything you want to throw in the comments, other questions, or just comments. Hey, Megan, glad you made it. The mirror. Yes, that is I think it's Noelle, and I forget her last name, from Lumia, which is a company that does coach training, says that coaching is like having a mirror and a flashlight, right? You go to your clients to help illuminate things and then also to reflect that back to them so they can see it. So the mirror, like that is a really powerful symbol. And Megan, I'm glad you mentioned that. Nadine, it is true about the design, like it goes different ways and we follow it where it is. And Amber's doing coach training right now, for those of you who don't know. And Amber, I think you've talked about it enough that I think it's okay for me to talk about too, I hope. One of the things that I'm thinking about as I think about next season is this season has been very exploratory. This season has been very, what is coaching? What do we mean when we say that? And some people say coaching and they mean consulting. Consulting is more prescriptive. It's more telling people, all right, you give me your problem and I'm going to tell you how to solve it. Go and do this. That's more consulting. Coaching is more, you don't coach problems, you coach people. Coaching is more helping people figure out for themselves where they're going, where they need to be going, and what they need to be doing. It is action-based. Like you do want people to do things, but it's not the kind of thing where the coach comes in and says, okay, you got to do X, Y, Z, and you'll be fine. Thanks, Amber. I appreciate that. And Sam is right. Like it is transformative because when you're coaching a person and not a problem, it's like the old teaching to fish metaphor, right? Give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach him how to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime, right? And yes, it could be women too. When you empower people to figure out their own stuff, you unlock things in a different way than if you just hand them a solution per problem on a case-by-case basis. So coaching is really about kind of next level personal development. So some of the questions I had, I've got one from Leanne. She asked what's in store for me. And this fits in with what I was about to say about season 2. Are you looking to become a coach in the future? Just very interested in the industry and personal development? Yes to all of that. I am very interested in the industry. I'm super interested in personal development. I believe very deeply that, we always have to start inside with everything. Like even if it's an external problem, like we need to make sure that we have the right mindset and the right tools to come to that problem and face it. So I think it always starts with personal development. And Sam's got an interesting thing again there in the comments. You know what? Sorry, guys, I'm off my game. That's what I was trying to do. Mindset coaching and mindset consulting, right? Are you trying to help people figure out for themselves what they want their mindset to be? Or do you have some specific experience or skills or points of view that you can share with them that are going to help shape that for them? There's different things to do. And you, Sam, have the experience that you can provide some roadmaps for some people. So a lot of what you're going to do is going to be prescriptive and very useful. We have times in life where like we do just need people to tell us what to do. That's true, David. Like there's times when you can get a little bit of both too. And a lot of the coaches that I've talked to and a lot of the coach slash consultant folks that I've talked to do address the fact that like those lines can be blurred and you can move back and forth between those roles. And you can move back and forth between them even in a single session, right? Like there may be a moment where, coach has to say, all right, do you want me to give you some consulting right now, or are we still doing coaching? And that's on a coachee and coach relationship. It's up to them to decide that stuff. So for me, I am looking to become a coach. I want to get into doing the thing where I hold space for people. I want to do that one-on-one. I want to do work where I'm helping people kind of work through their struggles as not as much a guide, but a companion and a helpful second set of eyes who can help people work their stuff out. One of the things in the coactive coaching framework, and one of the things that the ICF, the International Coaching Foundation, puts forward is that coaches have faith in their coachees that they are able to face things, they are able to work through things. They just need some help. So we're there to help, right? Season 2 of this show, I think I'm going to be delving more into this as less just kind of a curious person who's trying to learn the basics, me, and more of like a student who's in the process of actually developing the skills and talking about them. And I'll address that more as season 2 gets more shaped. But Amber, you might be somebody who has to be on that season with me. Just throwing that out there. Another question that came up that was a really good one came from Charity Hughes. And I think most of y'all know him. Oh, hi, Kinga. You guys, my wife is here. You don't count as my first coaching client. Kinga and I do have like coaching conversations sometimes, so we like have to hold space for each other, which is this thing about coaching, that coaching skills are like just good relationship skills. Like holding space for people is always important. So Charity had asked me, and Charity's in HR. If y'all don't know her, find her. Charity Hughes, if somebody wants to tag her, just so she knows I'm mentioning her question. She asked, have you discovered any insights that will help people thoroughly vet coaches and find the best one for him? Now, this ties back to something that way back in like March, when I was first shaping the show, Charity had said on one of my posts, which was that you have to be careful about who you're in these conversations with. When I was first starting to talk about the show, Charity said, be cautious about guests, because if you're in that space with someone and you don't know them well enough, then you don't know what you're attaching yourself to. When I run these episodes, there's a sense in which like the people who are here with me are part of what I'm doing. And I have to say I've chosen very well. I had 25 different guests. All of them were great. All of the conversations were great. In terms of how to vet them, though, a lot of that happened through DMs, and some of those conversations I had coffee chats with them before, and I just knew that we had clicked. There's the way that they talked about things. I could tell that they knew what they were talking about. There is, when you're looking for your own coach, I think, sense in which you can do the shorthand thing, right? We talk on LinkedIn, on platform, a lot about credentialing and about training and the value of that. Coaching is one of those things where coaching skills are at play everywhere. Megan's mentioning it being a favorite part of being a social worker. Like social workers are definitely like using these skills. Trainers are using these skills. Leaders are using these skills in a lot of different ways. In fact, the Coactive Coaching book is written as a book that is partially for coaches, but partially for leaders, managers who find themselves through their day-to-day activities ending up in coaching conversations where you may have to just tell someone what to do, but you may need to help them learn how to take ownership and go forward with themselves. Trevor, the stash is a week old as of today. I shaved last Wednesday. I'm looking at the clock, you guys, also, and I'm going to ask you to let me run over a little bit if it's okay, since I had terrible technical difficulties. Trevor, I don't know if you missed the beginning, but I forgot to reset my computer. Well, I neglected to reset my computer, and the stream quality was terrible. Anyway, so with vetting people, I do think that credentialing is really helpful. I think it lets you know that folks have done the training to kind of have this skill set. Now, that said, I'm also someone who is a fan of saying that you don't have to have credentialing. Like, I do think there are coaches out there who do great work. Their skill set, their attunements, their abilities are born out of life experience or out of training that they've had in another way in different jobs. Vetting those folks, I think, is probably going to be a combination of looking at their history, looking at their experience, to see what of that might be relevant to what you're looking for and what you're trying to do. And then I think you're going to have those conversations. You know, you're going to have some one-on-one talks with them, to kind of interview a little bit and figure out, you know, if it's a good fit. I will say that, Trevor, you got ghosted. What a bummer. Charity, thank you for asking good questions. I was saying earlier how I appreciate when I was starting the show, you were talking to me about the importance of vetting guests, and now I'm talking about that. Like, I do think you need to vet a coach that you're going to work with. I think you can do that through trust and credentialing processes, and I think you can also do that through interviewing with them, talking to them, getting to know them, and yeah, definitely looking at their experience, because experience is a powerful teacher. Sam had asked me, how has this journey impacted your perspective on coaching? Man, leave it to Sam to ask something that has no simple answer. It's a huge impact. The show has brought up repeated themes that really matter, and I've gotten to a point where some of them I see and come across in reading or in other conversations. And each time they come up, it just deepens my belief in and my commitment to the importance of that stuff. The intro sequence that I run when the show starts, there are several things that are mentioned, and I chose those things because those are big themes. Those are themes that come up over and over again. Coaches need coaches, right? Like, we all need support. If we're going to support other people, we need support ourselves. I myself have not had a coach this entire time. I've been talking to lots of different coaches, but I haven't had a personal coach, although I think I'm getting close. I'll tell you guys more about that some of the time. The personal connection that Ashley Griffiths mentions in that intro sequence, that's huge. The fact that Donna Knutson mentions stories, and now she coaches people with book writing. So she is helping people like actually write their stories in book format. But a lot of what coaching is about helping people write their stories in the day-to-day actions of our lives, right? Like, think about that. Each thing you do every day, every moment of your life is one letter, is one word, is whatever, as you are building up the sentences that make up the chapters that make up the book of your life. Having a coach is having someone who is helping you pay attention to what you are writing as you create that. So yeah, and Sam, we could keep going on that for a long time. And yes, keep the cup full. Amber asked me, which guest gave me the greatest insight into what type of coaching I'd like to offer? And that's a good question. I'm not sure that I have a specific answer to that, but it does bring some moments to mind for me. I had a big goal of the show was for me to, just personally get information and have access to folks, right? Before every episode, there was a little bit of technical talk. How's the video? And then there was just a little bit of chat. And then after the episode, most guests, like I think except maybe 2 or 3, almost everybody stayed, and we talked for another 10. Hi, Leanne. Listen, I'm being articulate now to try and make up for the train wreck that my video quality was when I first started the stream and then had to restart it. In those moments that I had in the pre-live and the post-live with the guests, there was an amazing amount of stuff that happened. And one of my, not regrets, but one of my big learnings from this as a live show is that I need to, for next season, figure out a way to record the before and after also. The way I'm doing it right now, I only have a recording of the actual live portion. Y'all, there were some nuggets dropped after the conversation. Because think about it. I would talk to someone, we would talk for 30 minutes. We were warmed up. And then because I've committed to 30 minutes and because I like that time slot, I would close it off, and then there would always be a few lingering things. Um, One thing that really stuck with me all season long in terms of thinking about my own practice and where I may end up is mid-season. I interviewed Aya Egbuho, and afterwards, she and I were talking about things, and she was talking about burnout, and she had been talking about how coaches have to be careful about that stuff. She at the time she has plenty of experience one-on-one. She had been transitioning to working with organizations, companies, larger groups. She had said to me that a lot of folks who do one-on-one coaching don't think about an exit strategy, meaning that one-on-one coaching can be really time consuming. It can be really energy consuming, right? Like you're doing intense work with people. You're really getting into it sometimes. And your own personal resources, mentally, psychologically, can start to feel drained, as well as your time. So you have to think about, like, how long am I going to do this? What's this going to look at like? Where do I need to get? Is there a point at which I might want to shift to group coaching or to working in a company and organization, something like that? That did connect to a conversation I had had with Mike Krause, who was on the show later. Mike and I had this conversation in a coffee chat, but he had also started moving into doing some group coaching in addition to his one-on-one, because the group coaching, and this was a really neat thing that he said, the group coaching allows you to lower the rates, because you do need to, keep making whatever your goals are. But by lowering the rates, you make it more accessible to people who might not be willing to pay or able to pay for one-on-one. Um, But when you do a group session, the coach's requirement isn't quite as heavy, because the people in the group are helping support each other, helping provide ideas, feedback, or helping notice things for each other. So it kind of democratizes coaching in a way, is the way he had put it. And I thought it was a really cool thing to say. Um, and yeah, Megan, beginning with the end in mind is a big thing. I think a lot of my own journey here has been, Brian Berman references this from a book, and I forget the name of the book. But there's this concept of ooching, which is where you're just slowly moving towards something as opposed to jumping all in all at once. Thinking about the end and kind of figuring out long term where you're going, even if it's broad picture, right? You don't have to have the details, but if you've got some pretty good direction, you'll be able to move more smoothly that way versus like jumping all in and then finding out that you've gone in the wrong direction. um, Keeping up with some of these questions, I got two more. Lindsay Parker had asked me, if you saw my post this morning, I had my coffee with a candle on top of it. And we're at that end of the showtime, right? When I usually give the guest the screen. An unintended bonus of that is when I turn off my screen, I'm always able to take a sip of coffee while y'all aren't looking. Now my secret is out. But in the post, I had a picture of my coffee cup with a candle stuck on top of it. And I said, I'd rather have coffee over cake. And Lindsay had asked, how can coffee possibly be cake? And I replied to the comment and told her, I think that question might be too big for us. I'm just not sure that we can tackle that in the scope of one episode. But she more seriously asked, would love to hear what has stood out most for you after having all these conversations this year. And it's the themes. It's those big themes. Lindsay is one of the folks that I have in the intro sequence right now. She talks in that tiny clip about awareness and about how it is this undercurrent that's there in coaching and in these conversations. Paying attention to our lives, paying attention to our relationships is huge, absolutely huge. And themes like that are super important to hold on to. We talk on platform on LinkedIn sometimes about posting and about repeating yourself, right? Like sometimes we post the same stuff. If you scroll the feed long enough, you start to hear the same things over and over again. Now, that's double-edged. On the one hand, it can start to feel dull. On the other hand, things that are important deserve to be repeated. Themes that matter, that carry weight, that are going to create change in a positive way, we need to keep hammering on those. We need to keep working on those. They are crucial. So that's a big thing that stood out for me, is how how important it is to stick with those themes and to keep talking about them, which is something that I'll keep doing. There's several that have come up, and they'll be continued focuses of conversation. The last question was one that Danielle had posted. Danielle Amy, she was on the show too. She said, was the outcome of the show what you originally thought it would become, or did it evolve into something better? Why or why not? Well, Nadine, I see repetition there, but I can't highlight it. I was going to try and click it and bring it up. Anyway, repetition is important. The outcome of the show, to Danielle's question, is about where I want it to be. I had set out with this goal to learn some things myself, and to create a space that had kind of a community conversation around coaching, around what it is, what it does, why it's important, and why it works. And we have talked about that since April, and there's a lot of good stuff that's come out of it. I certainly have learned a lot. I think a lot of y'all in the audience have picked up some good things here and there on the way. I've been happy to have all of the guests. Each one of these guests now has kind of this special place in my heart. I'm like, oh, they were on my show. When I go to my YouTube channel and I click over to the live tab, I can scroll through, all of these images of all of those banners, and there's all these smiling faces. And, those are folks who were my guests, and I'm glad they were here and they're like part of this thing with me. The other kind of goal that I had in the process of this was to get myself into this space as somebody who cares about this, somebody who's working on this, somebody who is a part of this. And I think I've done that too. I've had a few people say some really nice things to me about how they felt about the show. And going back to Lindsay again, one of the big themes on the show is holding space, and that coaching does that. When Lindsay and I talked after her live session, she told me that she thought I did a good job of holding space for people. And I was like really touched by that, because that's a big hope of mine, is that I'll be able to do that. And it's something that I really work on. So I think that the show has done a lot of what it's supposed to do. And it is a different thing to be, this is meta, to be the person talking on the show versus being the interviewer. Because I'm looking at the time and that's about it. But I don't have myself in the interviewer seat to be like, okay, here's your final minute. So I will say, kind of as a last thing, that I appreciate you guys, and this is a place where I got onto LinkedIn hoping to find kind of friends, colleagues that could help me go through my own professional development, figure out what I'm doing, figure out what I want to do, like that meta picture. That's why I got on LinkedIn. Getting there. The journey is going great. And each of you are a part of it. And I am super, super thankful for it. Thanks for spending the time. I'm gonna let y'all go. I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday. And one last thing, let me ask you, for those of you who don't know, I shaved last week because it's Movember. The Movember Foundation raises money for men's health, suicide prevention, cancer research. And David Gardner started a group. We're called the LinkedIn Mobros, who are doing fundraising. And I'm going to, in the little outro here, I'll leave a way that you can find us on there. And if you're able, if you'd like to, please drop us a donation there to help us. Part of what coaching does is encourage good conversations. Part of the conversation around men's health is that men need to be better about having good conversations. So I know Dave and the guys and I will really appreciate any support y'all can give us. And thanks for everything. I'll see you around in these LinkedIn streets, and I'll see you next season for more of this. Bye, everybody.